Today is day 28 and my ankle is feeling a lot better. I really lost a lot of time on that, 3-day sabbatical I took there, but it feels like it paid off. At the beginning of the day I was really being, kind of careful about not putting any weight on my ankle still, but just after a while it just started feeling all right. I started kind of, being able to touch it down a little bit, and now I'm going easy on it, but it feels like I can kind of walk sort of normally. So what I'm doing now is just moving up into the hills, and the forest is already kind of turning into the kind of forest where I'm expecting to kind of come across some streams and things like that around here. So it just seems like this is going to be a good spot. And what I'm looking for is just a really good place to kind of set up some sort of a shelter. I'm not so far away from that beach town still that if I felt I needed to, I could go back there, and this area could be all right. So I'm looking for a spot that has the criteria of a good camping shelter spot. Someplace I don't have to worry about getting flooded, someplace where I'm not going to have a lot of wind blowing around. Just a place where I can create a nice sort of semi-permanent place to kind of regroup and figure out what my next step is going to be. And again, winter's coming, so I need something. I'm also going to build a small kind of fireplace or wood stove so I can keep warm, just burning dead stuff. So I'm looking around and seeing what I can find that might work for a good ultimate shelter location. That's what they always said on television, right? Ultimate everything. I'm glad I got my ankle back. This here is looking like kind of a nice spot. It is elevated, which keeps it sort of safe from flooding. I see some sun coming in, and that's a nice bonus. You get some warmth in here. Overall, this is pretty good, but I think I would like to find someplace that has a little bit more shelter from one side for like north winds and things. So this is pretty ideal, except I think I can find something with a little bit more of a barrier between me and the winds. This area here is pretty cool. It even has this tree leaning over that you can kind of use as part of the structure. There's a lot of sunlight coming in here, which is nice, but there's one major downside, and it's kind of a mixed blessing, and here's some evidence of it right here. This was gnawed away by beavers, and beavers are usually near water. In fact, there's a lot of these little beaver gnawed trees here, and I think I can hear just up ahead. Not only do we have convenient water access here, okay, there you go. Yeah, we're right next to the water here. So this is exactly the kind of place I'm looking for. It's got beautiful access to nice clean water, but this particular spot, it looks like it could be possibly a floodplain, or at least a place that gets really murky. The presence of all these ferns here suggests that this soil gets really wet, and I think I'm close, but I need to find a place that's a little bit higher that'll, that I'm not going to get rained out of in the middle of the night. There are a lot of criteria that go into choosing a good place to find a camp spot, and a lot of them are kind of competing with each other. There's the consideration of wanting to have good access to water, but you don't want to be in a low-lying area that may flood. You want to find an area that is flat and level so that you can, work in a way that's comfortable and certainly sleep in a way that's comfortable. But at the same time, you don't want to be out in the middle of a large flat area where there's not going to be drainage if it rains. You want to be slightly elevated as well. it's good to be in a place where you can find some shade, but you don't want to be next to like a tree that's going to fall over on top of you, or at the base of a cliff where there could be falling rocks. So you always have to balance a lot of different sort of competing criteria for what you're looking for, and find something that kind of has the best mix of all of them. Another thing that you oftentimes want to find is a place that has some air movement. You don't want to be in especially in the middle of summer, you don't want to be in like a stagnant place where there's, you know, no wind or anything, because if there's bugs, the bugs are just going to be really unbearable. But again, at the same time, if it gets really super windy, that's going to be an issue too. So there's all these competing criteria, and you really need to, you know, find a place that kind of has the best balance of all these things. For me today, I'm looking for obviously a place that has access to fresh water. That's been a problem for me, and I would like to find some place that's not too far, but I don't want to find some place that is really low where I'm going to get flooded out in the middle of the night. So what I'm looking for is, you know, somewhere in this area, because I know I have access to that stream, finding some place that is kind of elevated, sort of a flat, level place that's elevated above, you know, the surrounding area, that has some soil that seems like it's going to drain all right, so I'm not going to be, you know, sitting in the middle of a puddle, and has some shelter from the sun and from the wind, but the last thing I'm looking for is a place where I'm worried about something falling on me. You know, something that's over me, sheltering me, can also become a liability. So there's all these different kind of competing things that I'm looking for, but when you find the right place, it can really make the difference between having a sort of camping situation where it really sucks and you're always fighting against the elements, and a place that really seems to be working for you at creating a place that you know, you can be comfortable in. I've been hiking for quite a while, and I got turned around back there a little bit, but basically what I'm looking for is a place that is going to be free of alien activity, just some place that's safe from the aliens. So there's a valley down here, and I figured I could check that out and see you know, what's down there. But I think there's going to be a place that's going to be at least safe from alien activity. So I'm going to head off in this direction and see what we okay, yeah, clearly that's not going to work out. All right, I'm not too far away from the water, but I'm a little bit elevated from it. I'm probably a good 5+ feet up, and I found all this rock here, which could make a nice wall. It'll retain a lot of thermal mass. So I'm looking if I can maybe build alongside it, but one thing I'm seeing a lot of are these big dead trees. There's one here, this one here, and there's one over here with a little kind of snake curve in its neck. And I guess the last thing I want is for one of those to fall down on a shelter I build here. Otherwise, this is pretty good. It's kind of elevated, and there's lots of opportunities for using some of this rock into part of the shelter, but these dead trees, they make it, there's no reason to build near these if I don't have to. So I'm going to keep looking. All right, here is a really good situation here. There's a big rock, and it's protecting from the north. The morning sun comes into this area. There's this little notch with the tree there that I could even put a pole through to kind of support up the roof. The only thing that's tricky about this location is this rock here, because it kind of feels like it would take up a lot of the living space inside. But it has this kind of crevice here, which, I don't know, maybe that could be useful. I don't know, I guess overall I'm feeling like this place is pretty good. It's close to water, but it's not at water level. It's elevated so that rainwater is going to probably shed away. We've got good shelter from the north. And also, nearby there are a lot of good trees to use for it here, so I wouldn't even have to carry stuff too far. Now that I feel like I found the proper location, the next step is to figure out exactly what type of structure I'm going to build here. And I'm going to base a lot of that based on the materials that I have available to me. Both what's in my pack, you know, the tarp, the paracord, things of that nature, and also what I have available to me here on site. In fact, here's a really great example right over here of this kind of thin, it's almost like a pole tree, and there are a lot of these around here. They'd be really easy to nip down just with my machete, and I think I'm going to build a structure largely based on thin poles like that. And I've been working on just a little mock-up here next to this boulder to kind of represent the boulder that I'm going to be building next to. I've got a ridge pole, kind of a large tree trunk here, and a couple of these supports that are really similar to the crutches that I made the other day. So I'm going to find some large pieces like this, crisscross them, set the ridge pole in the top of them, get them braced out so it's nice and stable. It's not going to be sliding around. And then I'm just going to chop a lot more poles. And I take the poles and just alternate them going down here. This is one thing I need to watch out for when I build, is that it's not allowed to do this. So I'm going to have to set it back, really set these guys in there. But I'll take these poles, alternate them as we go down here. And these don't have to be super close to each other, because these are not really what's going to be stopping the wind and the weather from getting in. Once I get all these down, the next step is to take some smaller things, smaller branches, and crisscrossing across all this area. Just sort of fill it in kind of like a mesh. And this doesn't have to be pretty. The idea is just to make kind of a mesh that's going to grab the next layer that we're going to put on. There we go, there's some like that. And the next layer is going to just be leaf material. And I'm also going to be digging material out from the inside, a denser dirt material, and that can go over the top surface. And I'm really just going to kind of build this whole thing up. I'm going to do that on both sides. And then once I do that, I'm going to put a tarp over the top. The tarp that I have, obviously I would want to trim these so that these spikes aren't sticking up. They'd obviously poke through my tarp. But I'm going to get a tarp in there, and a tarp over the top. And that should get this structure fairly cozy and able to be warmed up and keep it free from rain. I'm going to try to put a wood stove inside here. I'll build like kind of a fireplace out of some stones. There are plenty of free stones that I can pick up. And the trick is going to be making sure that that's done in a safe way, so I'll be addressing that tomorrow, I think. It's kind of late in the day today. I did a lot of moving today, and I think this is something I'm going to jump on first thing tomorrow morning. But it feels good to just have this amount of distance, from where I came from. I can feel like I've got a fresh start. I don't have anyone looking over my shoulder or breathing down my neck or any other cliches. And it kind of feels good. I mean, there's going to be challenges out here, but first thing tomorrow morning, I got to start working on the shelter, because please subscribe and tune in every Friday at 4:30 New York time for a new video. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can do so both through Patreon or PayPal.